Sure.
Hello, guys. Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy that you guys are here today. Chose to be here because there is all sort of places that you could be right now, but you chose to be here. Right? Appreciate that, and I hope I can do justice to that time that you're bringing here with yourself. Now, as I begin, I would like to encourage you guys to listen with an open mind and not especially get something, trying to get something as an idea. Because usually, when we are really trying to get something, the mind gets into a more tense kind of place because it's more like a very active kind of process. So, I want you guys to lean into a passive process, one where one where you when you would listen to some nice music, how you would be listening to. So you're listening to have a shift of some sort, listening to be moved by the music in some way. So in that sort of manner, listening for a shift instead of listening to, I don't know, get something like in an intellectual sort of way. Looking for change instead of looking for information. What's to say? And as you guys are beginning with it, I wanted all guys to ask yourself a question. What would be something that would be just enough so that you can walk away from here knowing that you're different in a way that you would like to be different? What would be just enough for you to get from this experience here in this 1 hour that you walk away from here that you would feel like, I'm really happy I made that choice? Because having a clarity on these kind of things allows our brain to operate it in a very optimal manner. Usually, when we are listening for information without any sort of context or any sort of purpose to it, clarity of purpose to it, it makes the job of the brain very difficult because brain doesn't know what to pick, what to sort for from all that is coming. So you want to make the job of the brain easy to sort for the kind of stuff that would make like an noticeable impact in me as I walk away from here. And as we begin, let's all just take a breath together. So the breath that I suggest is one that we would call as proper sigh or double sigh. So basically all you're doing is you're taking a breath, deep inhale, and at the top of the inhale, you're taking another inhale on top of it. It's going to be small, but you just do it with as much as possible for you. And then notice that moment of holding it in that place, and then slowly exhale. Exhale as slowly as possible. So do that 3 times. So this is, we have now neuroscience research data proving that this particular kind of breathing, it actually activates the phrenic nerve, which is a nerve that is found in the subcortical level of our brain. And this nerve will send the signal to the brain that everything is okay. So the thing is, we all get stress from the outside world, from one way or another. It gets to us. But the point is, how fast can we get back to our equilibrium, to our homeostasis? So that's what this particular breathing is so efficient at doing. We can do other kind of breathing, but it's always longer. And that this breath is activating phrenic instead of vagus, which is a slower informing system when it comes to letting the brain know everything is okay and sending the signal to slow down the physiological processes. So you guys can all Let's just all take it together. Exhale through the mouth. It gives you more conscious control over the process. By this point, you guys can notice how the shift in state is so fast. It's not easy to be stressed out in a state like this. So make this a habit. When you get stressed, the first thing that you should do is manipulate your breath, because that's the easiest lever. It has no stories involved, because all the stories and life experience that we gather in our lifetime is getting stored in the first 5 layers of the neocortex. So below the level of cortex, we are all almost the same, unless there is some sort of a drastic difference is there in terms of neurodivergence or something. Otherwise, it's the same. So this is a breath that we can all utilize to come back to homeostasis. Doing 3 or 4 of this will reset system. So now let's just begin with today's topic. So today I want to speak about identity, specifically the stories that we identify with. There's a lot of stories that we carry with ourselves through the experience of living, right? Experiences and how we have those experiences in terms of the story, that is. And most of the times the lines get blurred. We confuse the story that we tell about the experience is actually what the experience was. There's a lot of data in the experience actually, which get completely deleted and distorted in order to keep the narrative that we bring forth from it. So language is a higher level abstraction of experience. So you have an experience and you have a bunch of language that is a higher level abstraction that comes out from it. But most of the times, the purpose of it is so that we can effectively engage with the situation at hand. But what happens when the story is creating some sort of a experience that's not very functional for you to engage with the situation? You are making that story about unfairness. Let's just say, oh, it's really unfair what's happening here. Now, you believing in that story makes you not really at your best to engage with that situation, let's just say. So any story that we tightly identify with, it becomes a threat. Meaning, we start watching out for things in the world that threaten the story that we carry about ourselves. So anything that would threaten the story that we have about ourselves, essentially your system is firing up. Because threat to the story of the self is a threat to the self on a level. So that's why when someone really tells us something about ourselves that we don't really have it in our own stories, we get completely threatened by it. We get defensive, we fight, we get upset, we get angry. So these stories that we have is there for us to effectively, harmoniously move through with our life. So if the story is not doing that, it is time to change the story. And the experience itself, the way you remember the experience, you're making sure you are seeing very particular image about that experience, a particular sequence of events of that. You're choosing a particular beginning point of that experience. It all started like this. And then it all ended up like that. That's why I would never look into that direction. So you choose like a beginning point, you choose an ending point, you have some images. It can be images or it can be just some sort of a moving video, of sort. But most of the time, all the bad experiences that we have in our memory are the ones where the reel cuts off at exactly the worst moment. So the point is, you have the choice to change it. Nobody told you that was the beginning point of that experience. And whatever worst moment that you chose to make it the end point of the experience, that's not it. You gain, life moved on, and you were happy, and you were enjoying yourself, and life was good, and all of that stuff happened. But the thing is, you cut off in that worst moment, and now that is stained as this thing. So the only way any of the past exists in your life right now is through the way you represent it internally in terms of memory. Memory is an active synthetic process, meaning you have to do it every single time. It's not just there like that, because the brain hasn't recorded stuff like that. It's all scattered in different places. You have to organize and put stuff together, because the images are in a different place, the sound is in a different place, stuff is in a different place. It all have to be organized. So that's why the proper word for memory is it's an active synthetic process. And that last word is very important. Process. Process signifies something that's active, something that we are doing. It's happening right now. So that's why we call it an active synthetic process. So you have the power there too to choose to reorganize it differently. It doesn't have to be, you can use the faculty of imagination and change literally the way you represent that whole experience. But not if you get stuck. Oh no, that's not the truth of what happened. Doesn't matter what is the truth of what happened. It's about how you represent it. However you are representing it right now, that's definitely not the truth of it. So why bother? Why not choose a better one, right? However you are representing it, that's not the truth. Definitely there is a lot of information that got deleted and distorted in order to keep that story that you got identified with, to keep it in place. You deleted all that stuff. You're like, no, I was just miserable. You're like, really? Were you really absolutely, totally 100% miserable? Then you start looking as, no, I guess here and there was like some nice moments, but the thing is, brain just loves generalizing stuff. It's easy to move forward. Listen, categorization, to put it in a category. And you do that to yourself too. You put yourself in category. I'm this sort of a person. I'm that sort of a person. That's how I am because of so and you have a whole story to back it up. That's the story that you plug into so that you can be however you are in that moment. It's not about the fact. It's about what you believe. What shapes your experience in any given moment has absolutely nothing to do with the fact of the moment. It has everything to do with what are you believing in the moment about yourself, about the world, about your relationship with the world. So you need to ask yourself the question, okay, what is going on here? If you're experiencing something really negative, the first thing to do is take ownership. Take ownership of what you are experiencing in the moment and acknowledge wonder of your creative mind, which is at play all the time, creating experiences for you. Beneath the surface of what you are experiencing, there's all those things that are happening, all those processes that are happening that allow that experience to emerge, what you're experiencing in the moment. It's a profound thing. It's a beautiful thing, mind. But nobody ever gave us an operating manual for operating it. Yeah? There's ways of operating it. And all kind of knowledge gives you a certain edge. The knowledge of yoga, it gives you a certain edge. The knowledge of mindfulness, the knowledge of Buddhism, everything gives you a certain edge over mind. What I'm telling you is about how you can be the reality shapers, how you can shape your reality, how you can shape your experience. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be you either nervous or you are just at peace. There's a all sort of range of experience available for you. If only you know the mechanisms through which you can shape it and create it. That is belief. Whatever you're believing in the moment goes into as the ingredient that shapes your very experience in the moment. So what are you choosing to believe? What are you choosing to believe about yourself? And what will be just enough for you to believe about yourself so that you can actually be free? You don't want to believe and just shrink so small in the process. Again, it's a power. And with power comes responsibility. Like Spider-Man says. Spider-Man's grandfather says, there's power in belief, but you need to know how to wield it. You cannot be a victim to your own beliefs. If you're suffering your own beliefs, that's no way to really utilize it, is it? So the fundamental thing that goes into it is is to make the distinction. I never experience reality as it is. At any given moment, I never experience reality as it is. I only experience reality as the way my mind is making it up to be. See? You cannot experience what reality as it is. It's impossible. At any given moment, what's only possible for you is to experience reality as the way your mind is making it up to be. And you knowing that clearly allows you to take ownership of your experience, of what's happening in the moment. What am I really believing about myself right now? And usually you will find something. Emotion is not what would allow you to find out what's the real belief underneath. You have to be with the emotion and then slip beneath it. You have to be with it and just slip beneath it. What I mean by that is emotion is overwhelming. It takes you over. What you want is to be aware of the belief that contributes to shaping up that whole experience. Now that doesn't have that same punch that the experience has. It's more subtle and it's not overwhelming and you can actually witness it. That's all right? Because we can lock it. Actually, lost my train of thought actually in the process. Where was about? Oh yeah. To go below the level of emotion and see what is it, what is the belief that's right there. That's the matrix that shapes the experience. So you want to find that out. So that's the question. Question goes, what could this be about? And you want to leave room there. So when you're asking a question, what is this about, is very constraining. The answer is like very rigid. So you want to leave room for possibilities. So ask a question like, what could this be about? What could this be about? And knowing very well that my experience is entirely 100% mind-made, then only I can ask a question like that. If my experience has anything to do with what's happening outside, then there is no, I have to look outside. I have to look outside, like what's really causing this. But if I really choose to ground myself in the belief that my experience is 100% mind-made, when you can really accept that, it allows you to take real ownership and look within with curiosity. So you're like, oh, what could this be about? What am I really believing about myself right now? What am I really believing about the world right now? And you start to figure out, something start to show up. Okay, oh, that's not fair. It's not right for him to do like that after I've been for him all this time, or some sort of stuff come up. And then that's when the real work comes. This is when you need to start identifying with the I that chooses. Now that is, I'm not saying that is true. It's just a stand you make. The I that chooses. So I'm asking myself, okay, what am I choosing right now? What am I choosing right now? most of the times we get upset and we are suffering because we prioritize being right in the moment. There's only one thing you can prioritize in a given moment. You can either prioritize the state of being that you are in, or you can prioritize being right about the story that you are presenting at that moment. If you are choosing to identify with the story more than choosing to prioritize your state, that's when we start ending up getting bad results. Because you see, what you do is always an extension of how you are being. So if you're being in a very poor way, your way of being in the moment is compromised. There's only very little range of things that you can do that is going to create some sort of a generative result in that situation. It's like I'm really upset and frustrated with myself. There's going to be a limited range of things that I can do in that sort of a situation. If I'm engaging with probably I'm going to just get upset over someone, or I just engage in some sort of a poor way. So you always want to prioritize your being over doing. Doing is an extension of being. It's an emergence. What you do emerge from that place of being. But then again, it's not about getting identified with your being. See, whatever you identify with, the problem is, like we said before, anything that is a threat to that, you would be threatened by. Let's just say if I'm identified with my peace of mind, totally identified with it. Now, any sort of situation or any sort of situations that would threaten my peace of mind, I'm going to just avoid that. You see, now that's fear response. Fear has 6 ways of behavioral responses. We respond out of fear in 6 different ways. We avoid situations. So when we get identified with a particular state of being, then we avoid certain situations in order to stop that threat from happening. Anything that you are overly identified with, you're gonna find in a hard way, you have to let go of it. Because who you are, your real identity, goes way beyond whatever you think or whatever you can think. It goes beyond all the stories that you can have. It's about who I am in the world. Who you are when you are just by yourself is not who you are when you are in the world. There's a difference in it, right? So it's about you really choosing, how do I want to show up in the world? How do I really want to show up in the world in a way that aligns with where I really want to go in my life? And that would get me what I want, what I really want from living, from life. People get identified with their values. Sometimes you value independence, and then you just keep on identified with your independence, and then you end up missing out on so many other facets of life. Trade-off in life, always, for all sort of identification. The time spent on doing those things are the time not spent on doing all those other things. There has been an overemphasis in spirituality for a long time on just being. It has to stop. It has to accommodate doing and having also. It's not about just being. It's about the being and doing and having, and there is a relationship that each of them share between one another. Being leads to doing, and doing leads to having. And when you end in that having place, what happens to most people? They end up getting identified with that, all that they have in their life. Now that also cannot happen. You have to let go of what you have when you see it's not serving you anymore. Don't try to overdo and try to sustain what you have in your life because you're too identified with what you have in your life in terms of your lifestyle. There's so much stuff that we have in life, relationships, people, things that we enjoy. There are so many things that we have, and we get identified with it. And this identification comes with a cost because then you are not ready to let go. And unless you let go, you cannot again connect to inspiration, to motivation. Now, these things are ways of being in the world. So you need to let go of some of those things at some point because the nature of life is change. Everything is changing and you are changing too. So what once served you in life at some point is not going to be the best fit at all times. So you need to accommodate that changing life and changing you. Don't get stuck in the values. That values are stuff that you form. It's things that we have. That's why I say I have values. Because we form it by doing certain things in the world, being in a certain way, and now we have some values. As a result, these values, you should examine it, evaluate these values time and time again. Is this value really a good fit in my life? Do I love the life that I have? Do I enjoy it? Am I really happy with it? You need to ask that question. It's not about being and just not paying attention to doing and having and all that stuff. It's just because there is a relationship. Because we are in the world and we are creating something with our engagement with the world. Most of the times we cannot see it, but there are things that we are creating in the world just because we are being in it. There's a difference that we make in the world. But do we love the difference we make in the world? Do I love the difference I make in it? Because the difference of the difference make all the difference. And real power is about your capacity to make a difference in the world, in yourself. With power comes a capacity to make a difference. That's true power. And that has to start with yourself. How do I know? Do I have power with myself? How do I know that? The only way I can know I have power with myself is if I can make a difference in myself, in the moment. In the moment. Because power is an in the moment thing. You either have it in the moment or not. Oh, I had power before. Doesn't freaking matter. Where is it now? How do we know when we have it? When we can make a difference in the way we are being in the world, in the way we are being in the moment. What's my choice when it comes to how I want to be in this moment? What are my choices? That shows how much power I have with my being. Now that is empowerment. Empowerment is reality shaping. Your capacity to not just simply be being neutrally. That's one power. That's the power of enlightenment, the power to be. But empowerment is the power to shape the way you are being in the moment. Now, a different kind of knowledge enables you to do that. It's not like all knowledge gives the same kind of power, is it? It's different kind of power we get from different kind of knowledge. So there is power in being. So first you definitely tap into that. Because unless you have the power to simply be being, you definitely are not in a place to be shaping how you are going to be. You need to be able to drop back from the trance that you are in fall back into the totality of yourself. And the totality of yourself cannot be found in any stories that you have about who you are. That's the thing. It doesn't, no way of left brain hemisphere rendering can allow you to have that. Just don't get identified with anything. So tightly. Because whatever you get so tightly identified with, now whenever that gets threatened, that's when you start really suffering. It's not about identifying with now something else. It's not about identity. It's just simply about loosening the grip of your identity. And you sometimes identify as something. There's two things, identifying with and identifying as. Right now in the world, now we can identify as something. A man can identify as a woman. Possible. Now the thing is, they are not recognizing what they are really doing with their mind, because they are believing something about themselves, and that's going to create an experience. That's going to shape a way of being in the world. Now the real question is that really serving them, the way they are being in the world and whatever they are doing, and in terms of what they have as a life, do they love it? That's the real question. Now when you identify as something, now that's even more tight. It's more smaller than identifying with, because in order to identify with something, you really don't need to consciously know whatever it is that you're identifying with. A person can have absolutely no questions about this, and they can just be identifying with whatever and just unconsciously and just live forward. But identifying as is something that we consciously do. We can consciously identify as something. Now, if you're doing that, I would highly suggest you identify, no, I would not suggest to identify as something at all. Nothing. Nothing is worth identifying as. Okay? So you're putting yourself in such a small box, it's not worth it. Identify with the I that chooses. Identify with that. And also at the same time, know that your totality of yourself goes way beyond that too. It's just something that you're choosing to identify with in order to allow you to shape your reality shaping faculties in the ways you want and shape the ways in which you are being in the world. When you are identifying with the I that chooses, you can ask the question, oh, what am I choosing right now? What am I choosing to believe right now? What am I choosing to fall into the truth of? And what is it doing to me? Is it really taking me closer to me at my best or away from it? That's a real question. If it is really taking you closer to you at your best, by all means, keep with the story, because we are human beings, we are storytellers. We cannot simply have no stories. The point is, the stories we are telling to ourselves is helping us, is allowing us to strive forward in life, rise up in life, rather than lay low and talk ourselves out, getting into opportunities and stepping into taking risks that would open all sort of doors. It's not about that. So it's about knowing what is its story doing to me in terms of my empowerment. Is the story empowering me or disempowering me? If the story is empowering you, then by all means, keep it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, then the wheel works perfectly well, right? But catch yourself in those disempowering stories. Note that down. And in your own time, make some half an hour of your own time to catch these stories that you have been carrying with you, telling to close friends, because there are stories that we reserve for certain people. There is a story that is for strangers. There is a story for people who are a little bit closer. Story for family. Story for wife or husband or children. It's like different stories we have. Notice these stories and see if that is a story worth telling anymore, worth keeping anymore, worth identifying with anymore. If it's not, you have the power to choose a different story and see how you feel in your body, because power is embodied. So you can feel it in the body, in the moment. Body feels a power, a physical power, or literally it feels physically powerless with that story. So when you tell these stories, you be like, you know what? I'm done with the story. I'm done with this, and I'm choosing to stand up for my power. I'm not doing this anymore. Don't say, why am I doing this? That's a victim story. No. There is power in you doing things and you not doing things because both are within choice. So you can not do something. Now, there is power in that. That's why when you break off a relationship, there is more of a power you feel within yourself rather than you being the one who has to take it. Of course, it's painful. There's pain, there's attachments that you have, identification that you have to let go. It's painful. But still, there is power in that choice of stepping away. I don't want this anymore. I don't like the way I'm being and where I'm moving forward, the way I come up alive in this world. And it's okay. Every ending is just a new beginning. And there's always that beauty in beginning. That's always okay. It's just a way of looking at things. You can look at an ending as an ending, or you can see it as a beginning. Because it's up to you again. Choice. Power and choice always goes together. If you're choiceless, you have no power, guys. Power comes with choice. So the emperor has all the power. Why? Has all the choice available. That's the emperor's power. So you want to tap into that emperor power and empress power and stuff like that. And it has absolutely nothing to going for like a 10-day retreat in Costa Rica and just dancing around in a bunch of circles or something like that. It's more about choice. Power is about your capacity to make a difference. And if you have that in the moment, right now, then you have power right now. If you don't have it, you don't have power. Lord, grant me the power to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. There is things that you cannot change in the moment, but the way you are looking at it can change. So there is always choice. And the way you're looking at it, as long as that changes, everything is going to change. Because your point of view of a situation will dictate your way of being in that situation. And the way of being is shifted, then what you're going to do is going to be different. And when you do different things, you have different results. So it's a natural extension. See, being, doing, having. Where are you guys at? I'm just leaving the room for questions. It's like everyone is happy. I had a good meal. Satisfied. No, that's rewarding. That's rewarding that you don't have a word right away or like a question right away. If you have a question right away, that means you have not been present. You have been sitting with a question all along. Good. You've been moved. That's more important than getting some intellectual idea. Transformation. Always look for transformation, not for what you're familiar with, to that you can just simply agree with or something like that. Because most of the time we just look for familiar information that we can just simply agree with. But that doesn't change us, help us change in any way. Because that means whatever change has to happen from we accepting that has already took place. Because we have no problem with it. And whatever we are not agreeing with, we plain out just reject. Then there is no room for change. So if you want to if you really want to transform and you want to change, you have to be actively looking for that. You have to be listening for change. That's why I said, listen in a manner you would listen to some soft buzzing music. So there's no, it's a process where you are allowing. It's not so much of a process of trying to get something. It's more like a backward, a drop back. You're listening to be moved. So there is nothing for you to do. And it's just a way of being. Simply relax. By the way, this is how you notice if something, what you want more of. When you know you want something more of, it will feel good. Then you feel naturally there is a sense like, I want more of that. Tastes good. And you have more, and still there is a hunger. I will want more of it. And that's how shift actually happens. You listen and listen and listen and listen, and in the process, you are changed. And you know that by you being in the world in a different way and doing different things and having different results, that's how you know, oh, I am changed. It's not, oh, I get it. Oh, I get it now. I got it. It's not about getting it. That is just simply, it's just a mind's way of playing with your games. Trying to just, you found something good, but mind is already, you know what? Oh, you got it. No, you got it, really. Now, to simply move forward with life. No, you cannot just get it. It's a way of being. I've been being in the world in a certain way and doing certain things and having certain results. And this is the product. So what we have is the result. What we are is the result. What we know is the result. How we are being in the world is the result. So the question is, do I love it? Do I love how I am being in the world? Do I love what I'm doing in the world? Do I love what I have in my life? Is this what I really want? Does my heart skip a beat when I just think about my life? For me, I cannot wait to wake up. Aldous Huxley once said, the genius is the one who can carry that enthusiasm of the child all the way through adult life to the old age. If you can still be curious with the world, still be curious with who you are, now that's genius. Because curiosity is rewarding. The brain rewards an individual for simply being curious. Immediate release of dopamine into the mind and body, so you start getting all sort of motivation in the mind and start feeling all sort of good feeling in the body. So if you're curious with yourself, not certainty, guys, not certainty, not having an absolute certainty who you are. No, certainty kills curiosity. So that's why I say there's beauty in accepting I don't know. I don't know who I am. And that can be beautiful. That can be interesting. I can be curious about who I am. And it can be a process of discovery. I know, yeah. Curiosity kills the cat. That's the thing. We can make a whole philosophy of something by taking one particular context. Yeah. But why would the brain reward an individual for being curious and then for exploring the object of curiosity? Until the moment eventual meeting of the object of curiosity, you get dopamine release. Now that's crazy. It cannot be clearer than that. Being curious is the way to go. You cannot be, because the people who are not curious with themselves and the world around them, they fall into boredom. They fall into boredom, and people who find life increasingly boring it comes with age. You come into all sort of certainty. How I see is how it is. What I see is all there is to it. So there is wisdom in taking the knowledge from our ancestors and all this yoga and all these philosophies. Certain power in it. But there is also power in curiosity. Don't miss out on that power. Yes. Anyone? Any last question or something? What is it? The power in simple ways is your capacity to make a difference. So if you can make a difference with yourself in the moment, now that means you have power with yourself. So if you can make a difference in the world in the moment, then that means you have power with the world. Make sense? It's about having power with something. I have power with my being, then that means I can make changes in terms of how I am being in the moment. So usually there is not so much of power in doing, because usually the being paves the way for doing. So if I'm being absolutely nervous and really unsure of myself, there's going to be a range of things I can do at the moment. But if I'm being so full of fun and joy and absolutely not caring about how the world sees me, and that is not at all important to me, then there's a range of things that I can do. And this both range of things are going to be entirely different. Being shapes your doing. If you are going for power, the best place you have power is always power in being. That's where you must always go, because everything else is it's a hierarchy. From being comes doing, and from doing comes having. Because as a result of you doing something over and over, you have something as a result in your life, right? So the things that we do repeatedly, essentially we call them habits. So doing our habits and behavior is doing. Being is inspiration, motivation, all kind of states of being, feelings, emotions. That's all being. Now having is the results. What we have. Like the relationships you have, the good networks you have in your life, the knowledge you have, everything, the skill set you have. So all that you have. I have the skill. Okay then, nice. Okay.